Hey everybody, welcome. Joe Bergamini here with the Sabian Education Network. We're back once again. It's Friday. You know what that means. It's time for the SEN Roundtable. I always wanted to know what it felt like to be a talk show host. And now finally I get to know what it feels like. I get to host this great gathering of educators every Friday with Dom Famularo, my best buddy and my teacher. Hey Dom.
How you doing, Joe? This is great to be back.
So I'm pretty excited this week, Don, because we have two old friends of ours, old friends of Sabian, longtime friends of Sabian, and both of these gentlemen are wonderful teachers and players. And we paired them together because they both have some unique other specialties and other areas of expertise that they're going to share with us that I think might help a lot of the other SEN members to hear what they're doing, because we're always looking for new avenues to get new students involved and reach out to the community to be a part of our community. As you know, you and I are both really big into that, teaching people in the local area. Rob and Manton here are both very, very entrenched and very, very well respected in their communities. So I'm excited to have them share what they do. So welcome, everybody. We see a lot of our regular attendees. Neil, Jeff, Bobby, Pete, Claude, thanks for coming, guys. Great to see you. Nina, thank you. Oh, welcome, Nina.
Already, we got Jersey, we've got Canada with Jeff Lang, we've got Bobby in upstate New York, Pete Gamber in California, Claude Hoffman in Belgium, Nina Parra in Brazil, Tony McNally in the UK, John Gills upstate New York. So we got a pretty wide variety of people already joining us here globally.
Exactly. We're like ZZ Top. We're bad and we're worldwide. You know what I'm saying? So I want to give you guys a little bit of an introduction to our guests today before I turn the floor over to them. Next to me on the right is an old friend of mine, Rob Leytham. Rob, welcome.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's been 30 years. We met in Chicago, you and Tom, and I remember that the main thing of that was to get people inspired about drumming, and to think that we've been doing it for the last 30 years, getting young kids involved in drumming, getting old people involved in drumming, and it's just been a lifelong pleasure to be able to do this. It's been an honor, and making some new friends that are then and now making a new one with Manton. I'm really excited to hear what he has to say.
Excellent. Well, Rob, what Rob is alluding to is a conference that Dom put together for the old National Drum Association, which was 30 years ago, where David Garibaldi and Louis Belson were the panelists along with Dom, and we forged some lifelong friendships there. So we may come back and talk about that a little bit later. It was a really special weekend. So we'll revisit that. A little bit about Rob for those guys who haven't and girls who haven't met him. He's been teaching privately for over 30 years. The store he works with now is Palin Music. He's in the Kansas City area. He's written several books for Mel Bay, which Dom's going to talk about a little bit later on, and over 20 articles for Modern Drummer. And he's teaching at the elementary level as well as his private drum teaching. And so he does mindfulness hand drum workshops with students of all different ages. And might I add, he's a great drummer. We have a shared interest in progressive rock. We both had recordings with different bands. I see that picture of Neil back there behind you, and I love it.
I usually have candles around it. But
And then down below, so that's a little bit about Rob. And then I'm proud to welcome down below Rob from LA, Mr. Manton Daley. Hey, Manton.
How you doing?
We're doing great. It's great to have you. And a little bit about Manton, for those who have not met him. He's been with Sabian quite a long time. Teaches not only drum set, but also is an expert with Drumline, is currently teaching at Sierra High School, formerly and still does a little current work with El Camino College Compton Center in LA. He's been teaching percussion over 36 years. And he's involved with an interesting outreach program called the Sweetwater Blossom Foundation, where he works with students in Jamaica. He was actually supposed to go to Jamaica, but like all of us, he had to change his plans. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to talk a lot about all these different initiatives. Dom, you have any opening thoughts before I start pumping these guys?
Yeah, the first thing, Manton, if you've been with us for 30 years, you only look about 25 years old. So I don't know how the hell you're pulling this off.
Someone asked me how old I was my last birthday, and I said I'm 2. But no, you know what? I'm just blessed. I'm blessed. It's,
Yeah.
Beautiful. That's fantastic. Good genes.
Thank you. So let's go. Don, what I'd like to do is these guys one at a time to talk a little bit about their current activities.
Good.
So Rob, let's start with you. I know you've been teaching a long time at the store, but maybe you could tell us a little bit about the program you do with mindfulness workshops, and give us a little overview, and especially if that informs your private drum teaching. Is there overlap, and how does that all work?
Okay. Well, let me say that I've started the mindfulness about 6 years ago. My studio, about in 2012, my studio closed, and I was teaching about 125 private lessons a week.
Yeah.
I was constantly writing for Mel Bay and Modern Drummer, and I was burnt out. And things were changing in my home life. My kids were getting older, and I was wanting to be able to spend more time with them. So I just kind of took a break from teaching drum set and started working at an elementary school. And because that's what I enjoyed doing. I was enjoying working with children, but the drumming, I was just kind of burnt out on all that, the business part of it. So I worked with special ed for about 3 years, and during that time I went back and got my teaching certificate and in elementary ed. And then I got the job working with behavior students at an elementary school. And during the interview, the lady says, I see all the books you've written. I've seen you've worked with drums. How can you bring this into the elementary school? And I gave about one of the hippiest interviews I was talking gongs and bells and everything. And so then I was personally seeing a therapist who was practicing mindfulness. And I thought I can bring the drums into this, work with the kids, because I was feeling anxiety because I was thinking about the future. I was feeling depression because I was thinking about the past. What I needed to do was think about the present. Now. And that's the same way with my kids. I work with kids with a lot of issues. And so when they come into my room, they pick up a drum. And the first thing we do is we just go around in circles, and we'll take deep breaths. We'll talk about how the day's going. We'll play a game, maybe a rhythmic game, a focus game. Then I do rhythmic mantras. So I've been writing these rhythmic mantras, and we recite them. They get a little break. Then we do an I love you ritual before they go back to class, where I go, before they go back to class, I go, Joe, your eyes are brown. I wish you well. And then they'll say, Mr. Leytham, your eyes are blue. I wish you well. And I say, are you going to walk or run back to class? And they'll go, I'm going to walk. Well, they're going to run. Whenever you go back into class, are you going to sit and listen to the teacher? I'm going to sit and listen to the teacher. You're not going to sit and listen to the teacher. But, they say the right words. We come back, and then we do the drum things again. So the kids, we got my current principal, Dr. Tyler Shannon, he's all in onto this drumming. So he just filled up my room with djembes and bells and shakers and the buckets. We have a bucket group that performs at assemblies, and these are the kids that get in trouble. I got kids that try to set fire to the school, but they get drumsticks, and we perform in front of the student body. And so that's during the day.
Wow.
And then at night, I come here to Palin and teach drum set. So, when I was a kid and I was praying, dear God, can I please become a professional drummer? I thought I was going to be, the drummer for Sting or Peter Gabriel. Well, that didn't happen. But my current life for the last 30 years, I've pretty much had a pair of drumsticks or a drum in my hand for 12 hours a day. So yeah. I've been blessed.
That's great. It's interesting how you found such an openness to do the hand drumming program with the educators. I think that's something you're in a position where, you have your teaching certificate, and so you're working at the school, you're in a professional teaching capacity. Do you think that this is a program and maybe not dealing with some of the students that you're dealing with if they're special case students, but is it something that a drum teacher could replicate, locally to do some kind of workshop like this with their school nearby?
Yes, yeah. They're all the time looking for adults with a background that would educate these kids in something that they're not used to. If you think about what most kids are doing, they're on an iPad. So when an adult comes in and brings all these drums and shakers and buckets and everything, you're using a different part of the brain.
Yeah.
And, so they're getting fine motor skills. They're focusing. So I think, we have volunteers come into our school all the time. Some of them are helping to read, others, helping kids in math. We can always use people to come in and help with music.
Right. Yeah, I think that's probably in many different districts all over the country and the world, probably.
It really is. And, a lot of these sounds, if you really kind of dig deep into the Sabian catalog, there are some cymbal sounds that are very unique in their sounds that you could also add to that as Sabian continues to innovate these unique, crazy sounds, bring some of that in there too, so they can hear a whole nother level of unique metal sounds.
Yeah. Well, I got gongs, I got bells.
Yeah.
Flash cymbals. Yeah.
Great.
Totally. Great. So let's throw it over to Manton for a second. So Manton, I'd like you to talk. You've been teaching at the school level for many, many years. Can you give us a little background with the college and also with the high school? You've been doing Drumline, and tell us about the programs you've been teaching.
I'm originally from Jamaica. I was born in Jamaica, came to the United States when I was 14. And coming from Jamaica, I already had 9 years experience playing before getting here. I started when I was 5. So I was an early starter. In coming here, I started teaching when I was 21. It was 3 years out of high school. And I went back to the high school I graduated from. And I'm like, what a difference does 3 years make? Mm-hmm. By the time you graduate, you left there as a student, and in 3 years, things have changed. And it was like one of the toughest schools in the neighborhood. So I had to learn to have classroom management really fast, because if not, they would have ran all over me. I had a 28 waist pants, and I was pretty skinny. And when you're pretty small and you work in a school like that, that make you work hard. And from there, I was able to work with All City Marching Band that marched in the Rose Parade. I was with them for 3 years. And then from there, I've worked in the middle school for 15 years. Mm-hmm. High school for the rest of the time, and I worked at the college for about 1.5 years. What I've learned is that the college students are no different from high school students. They still give you excuses why they didn't practice. They're just a grown-up version of the kids. So, right. In teaching at the college, I had to use a different approach, because they're just beginning to be adults, and you have to handle them differently, and with a different care. You use the same care you use in high school, middle school, but in college, their first year, they're a little more sensitive too, very sensitive. They'll cry if you talk to them too loud. Or some of them will think that you're being too hard on them. And my thing is, I don't want you to be as good as me. I want you to be better than me. And over the years, and recently, for the past 7 years, I've been at Sarah High School. Mm-hmm. Sarah High School is like one of the most premier high schools in LA. It's a Catholic school with a sports program and an academic program. Mm-hmm. So my first year, I was like, man, I'm at a Catholic school. This is going to be easy. No, it was. I started with about 7 drummers. And when they realized it was going to be a little bit a little level of difficulties, they kind of backed out. So the following year, I had to start a drumline from literally scratch. And for about 3 years, I had most of the girls on the drumline. I had about 8, 9 girls on the line, and they ran stuff, man. They're on it, you know. And for the past 2 years, pretty much the whole drumline made the principals on the roll.
Right.
You know, I told them I just don't want drummers. I want ambassadors. I want kids that are willing to represent themselves and their families.
Yeah.
You know, just don't play the drums. That's just 1/10 of the aspect of your life.
Yeah.
You know, I want you to be good citizens. With that, I was able to. We have been on Fox Sports Net. We were the game of the week, so people always heard the Drumline and didn't know I was the one behind it. And for the past 7 years, I've done the Los Angeles Catholic School Band that we did the Hollywood Lane Parade, and I'm the head instructor for that.
That's great.
And it has been a blessing to see kids from different schools, put them all together. It's about 50 drummers, and I have one rehearsal with them, and my job is to get them together in one rehearsal to march the parade.
Yeah. Wow.
You know,
I have a question about the when you had to go back and start the line from scratch. How did you do recruiting?
It's funny. I went to my teachers and I said, I need some drummers. And my teachers are like, okay, we have this kid, we have this kid, we have this kid. And then I went to the classrooms and made my pitch to the kids. And that's how I put the line together.
Oh, that's it. Huh.
Yeah.
Dom, do you think that's really interesting? So going to the teachers, the other teachers, you mean not just the other subject teachers, not music teachers.
Yeah, the other subject teachers.
Yeah, and getting them to send over students. That's a great idea.
Absolutely. I mean, think about it. You know, these students. Listen, some of them have to be involved in something, and they're not involved in anything. And sometimes when they come along and they hear about drums, that's a great way to hook it. Great going.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, and then at the same time, and you're also teaching private drum set, obviously, too, right?
Yes. Yeah. And you know, one of the things is that in teaching private drum set, I have a student. I don't know if he's watching. That I was his instructor in high school in 1991.
Yeah.
And that school was known, Jefferson High School, was known to be one of the craziest schools. And it's one of the most unbelievable schools I've ever worked. And I remember when I went, my drummers, you know, they all had their little attitudes and stuff. Who are you coming and telling us what to do? So as a drummer, I'm like, okay, cool, put the drums up. So I set the drum set up and just started playing. And when they realized I could actually play, they were willing to listen. And until this day, he always reminded me about that. He's like, when you came to Jeff, you didn't take no stuff from us. You came in and you knew what you were doing, and you put the plan, and it worked. Yeah.
Well, that's a great, you know, that's an amazing thing, because I think all of us as teachers have to discover the approach to take with a given student. There's times where, you know, you have to have a little more tough love, like you have to establish that you're the alpha dog, right? And then there's times where, you know, maybe you have to be, I don't know, if, you know, maybe Rob, maybe some of the days you go from what you're doing at the school, and then you come in at night to the private teachers, you have to totally change your approach, I would guess, right?
Yeah, I had my first student, I hit like a wall, because I've been dealing with elementary school kids. And then I hit, you know, middle school and high school. And it's like, I have to change the way that I talk. I have to change the way that I present something. It's still kind of the same way in instructing. You know, whenever I'm dealing with behaviors, I talk a lot about your face is, your smile, it's a frown now. Your eyes are looking like this. Whenever I'm teaching a student here on drum set, it's kind of the same thing. I'm your hand, your stick is here, and we're, I'm noticing what they're doing. I don't go all whiplash on either of my kids, any of my kids. Even if they're throwing something at me at the elementary school level, I'm still staying calm, trying to get them to breathe, trying to say, man, you're safe. I know you're having some big feelings right now. We can work this out. But just kind of, again, just like you were saying, Manton, you're safe, and so when the kid comes in here, they feel safe. I'm wearing a mask, whenever I'm teaching a lesson now. It's just so that they can feel safe.
Yeah.
They see me cleaning the place before they come in, spraying the place down, so that they feel safe, so that they can learn. I don't want anything in the back of their mind going, what's going to happen whenever I leave this place?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You got something to add?
And I agree. I agree completely, because what has been, to me, what has been my success for 36 years is because I treat the kids like they're my own. I treat them like they came from me. And I tell the parents that, look, when they're with me, I'm going to treat them like they came from me. So if they came home and told you I got on them, yes. But I'm doing it out of the place of love. Mm-hmm. If they get in trouble, I'm the first one to run to them and help them. If they're having problems at home, I'm the first one to find out what's going on and try to be of help. Mm-hmm. If they're crying, I will spend the time to find out why they're crying. So I make them feel safe. If kids are safe, you don't have to worry about them listening to you. Mm-hmm.
Don, both of these guys are passionate about what they do, and it's very inspiring.
They're into it. Talk about, Rob, I know you had mentioned 120 some odd students a week.
Yeah.
That pace and that intensity, and Manton, yourself were doing this here. How do you maintain the level of motivation, and how do you keep energized from student number one to the last student of that day?
May I answer first?
Go ahead.
Yeah, man.
Okay. So I am more energized at the very last student than the first one. Whenever you think about, and one of the things, whenever I'm working with students during the day and at night, whenever you're drumming, your brain is creating dopamine and oxytocin. Okay, so one of the reasons that teachers send them to me is so they can get that little dose of dopamine and oxytocin. Well, you know what? That's it. Whenever they're done drumming with me at school and they go back to class, I just gave them a little dose of Ritalin. So I have that chemical going through my brain 12 hours a day. So I'm not stopping and getting a cup of coffee, I'm not getting tired. When I'm done at 7:30 at night, I start my day at 7:30, I end my day at 7:30, and I am still fresh. Now, when I get home and I walk through the door and I see the dishes are still in the sink, I go, Nick, Courtney, why are the dishes still in the sink? Then I'm tired.
Nice. Manton, what about you? What's your...
Okay, for me, currently, there are two things. Right before the pandemic hit, I got hired by Los Angeles City Parks and Recreation to be their music teacher. Yeah. And then once that hit, that kind of put that on the back burner because we couldn't have no interaction with anybody, so all the parks closed. So once the pandemic is over, I'm transitioning into that. With Sweetwater Blossom Foundation, I have the opportunity to teach the very place I was raised and I was born. So for me to train band directors in Jamaica and train their students in this coming class, I'll be teaching what's the name of that college? It'll come back to me. They have an incredible band director, and he have decided to put all his kids through my program. And his name is Mr. Hart. And, to be able to teach those kids, the amazing thing, it started with 4 kids, 2 band directors and 2 kids, to now 3 classes a week.
Wow.
And we started with 4, and now we have representatives from over 25 marching bands in Jamaica attending the class. So, to be able to teach these kids who some of don't have anything, and to give them the skill and the hope. And like I told them, look, when I was born in Jamaica, when I marched on the same streets you marched on, I never thought I'd be doing what I'm doing now. So don't think that your end life is where you are. There's so much more for you to do. So, I get this adrenaline kick that when I'm teaching them, the classes run like 3 hours, and the kids are there. They're there taking notes. They're there doing all that stuff. They get their instrument out. They bring their sticks. They do this. I teach the horns as well. I train the band directors. And the energy level I have, I am so excited that, I'm just like Mr. Energized Bunny. And once the class is over.
Right. Yeah, it's true. You get a focus. I had 2 beginner students online for the first time, and I'm actually getting used to teaching a very young beginner online for the first time. And when I finished those lessons, I realized the same thing. I mean, it's those of us who love to teach, and I think you guys would agree, I get just as focused as if I'm on a gig. It's like you're playing. If teaching doesn't do that for you, those are maybe certainly some drummers don't like to teach as much. That could be a sign that maybe it's not. Maybe you need to develop a better technique of doing it. Because that intensity, I think for all of us, it does come naturally. But Dom, I'm always amazed at you because you'll do these days where you go for 16 hours. And.
Well, it's a part of the process. I think, Joe, if you can pull up John Wilson's comment at 2 minutes and 18 seconds, it's an interesting point in what he brings up here. It's the level of compassion that we have to have with each student. Each student is different, and each student understands the level of if we go out there and that's Murray's. Hi, Murray.
Hey, Murray, how you doing? John Wilson, 218. This one?
Yeah, there it is. Okay.
Yeah.
The compassion you share with your students is amazing. They will remember your lessons for life. This is very powerful because what happens with this is that compassion that we show in teaching, and that's what I love about the Sabian Education Network. Listen, the 5,000 teachers that we have networking worldwide is an energy and a force that is moving our industry forward. We're trying to create more students. We're trying to inspire those students that are playing drums. We are building the machine of our industry. These teachers and educators of what you do is the backbone of what our industry depends on. When you're teaching 20, 40, 50, 125 students a week, they're coming in and they're excited about it. That's what keeps this industry going. So there's got to be a level of compassion. There's got to be a level of drive that we have. The reward is unbelievable because those students will remember you for the rest of their lives. I'm into my 2nd and 3rd generation of teaching now, where I've taught the father, the child, and now the grandchild is coming in for lessons. And when you see that and the excitement that they've had in the journey of learning music, this gets to be a high that's sometimes, kind of hard to explain.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. It's definitely, it's been amazing that we can share this experience with so many great educators on our roundtables every week. So, Dom, I want to give you the floor to talk about Rob's book. But before I do that, Manton, I have one more question for you, and it's about marching band. So, Rob, have you taught marching band too, Rob?
No.
Okay, so I taught, Manton, like you, I taught my own high school for a few years after I graduated, and I found that teaching marching band made me a better teacher just because of having to deal with the discipline of the group. So do you have any techniques you developed for keeping the focus of the group? Like, let's face it, you're doing marching band, you have to deal with some kids who are not like zoned in to what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, okay, let me start with this one. One of the things I did at the Catholic school that worked is when I first got there, and it was like 3 years into it, they introduced me to the Mount Senior. And man, I thought I was in trouble from there. I'm like, what did I do? I'm gonna meet this about senior. And he looked at me and he said, so you're the one that have been having the drumline here. And I said, yeah. And he was like, I love the drumline. I love to watch them play. And one of the things I did going into the Catholic school is that I brought funk into the Catholic school. So I changed the typical stuff they usually do. And I wrote some funkier drum cadences and all that stuff. And, you know, and to clean your hands up. And just, you know, my thing is, I always tell my students, I don't want super students. I want students that are willing to work. For that reason, in my 36 years, I've never auditioned any kid.
Oh.
I take a kid that comes, they can't hold the drumstick, they can't do nothing, and I find them a place on the drum line. I put them on the cymbal line, start them, move them up to the bass drum, you know, move them up to the snare, whatever, but it's a progression that they go through. And I personally take the time with them individually to make sure. And we did this one thing where we had pizza day and we took them to the mall. I was scared. We took them to the mall and just let them go to the movies and sit and have pizza. And it was amazing when they came back to school. It bonded them together because now they went to the movies together.
Right.
I sat on a bench far away from them and just be there as a supervisor.
Wow.
But you know, those are some of the things that I've put in place that has nothing to do with drumming per se. You know, if they want to talk about the hearts, if they want to talk about the cat, you know, I take time with them to talk about the hearts and the cat because that's important to them, you know. And if you spend those goofy moments with them, then when it's time to work, you know, because drumline to me is a big family because they play together. Right. And, you know, you have to put kids together that know how to get along with each other. And how do they get along with each other? You know, you let them know you're a family. And in this family, we're not going to have a dysfunctional family. Not disagreements, but you're going to iron it out between you two.
Yeah.
I only step in unless you two can handle it. So in teaching this class in Jamaica, it is such a vast set of kids and vast set of instructors that to me, it's like running a well-oiled machine. You know, some of the moving parts. But the part of it, I'm more excited than they are teaching. They have to see the excitement coming from you because it's a team sport. They play together. And if one person's playing off, then everybody is going to be off. Yeah. You know, so it's teaching them to really work together in a cohesive way and teaching them how to get along with each other.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
And, you know, for the LA Catholic School Band, too, 50 drummers, what you find out after the parade is over, they all call each other.
Yeah, this is great. This is fantastic. It's all about relationship.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think it's so inspiring that Man's invested, you know, and he invests the time to build the trust and the faith with every student. And that's just amazing. Great. Let's come back to that. Dom, you have their book that Rob wrote, do you not?
I do. Rob had not only mentioned my name in the book, but he also wrote a piece in this book that he had. This is Extreme Drum Set Solos for Recitals, Contest, and Fun. And I'm really impressed with this book. And I use this book with my students because what he has in here, aside of the fact that it's dedicated to his beautiful wife, Alice, and his children, Nick and Courtney, which is wonderful, this has rudiments used in solos. So what it does is he kind of takes, you know, the rudiments that are used in solos and then how to kind of use these in the solos. And it really is very creative from the rudimental background, what marching drum gives us, to the drum set. I think, Rob, you did it beautifully well in here. And then there's a piece in here that he wrote, which I am honored to have. let me get my page here number here. Okay, here it is. Okay, I've got myself here, and it's called Global Domination.
Oh, nice.
And it's really a kick tail piece in what you have in here, which is so I think what you've done, Rob, is you've done some great things. You've brought the marriage of this rudimental concept into drum set, and that's one of the challenges that I think we have to understand in the rudimental field. Now, in today's time, not many rudimental drummers that are in the drum corps are playing drum set.
Mm-hmm.
In my time, back in the late 60s, when I was involved with the drum corps and then started teaching drum corps in my high school back on Long Island, every drummer in the drummer played drum set. Everybody played drum set. If you played tenor, if you played snare drum or bass drum or triangle or cymbals in the band, you played drum set. We've lost that now. So I think we have to kind of work towards trying to bridge that gap further. And a book like this, Rob, I want you to talk about because that's one of the bridges of the gap.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, if you think about, like my heroes, Billy Cobham, Steve Gadd, those guys were marching band drummers. It's wonderful snare. I mean, definitely Billy Cobham. I mean, he was just cool.
It's funny you mentioned. I just spoke to Cobham literally before this session. He's back in Bern, Switzerland, and he was in the Sunrisers at that time. So you're exactly right, playing all that drum corps stuff.
And so, I couldn't help but whenever I was writing these books, because all of my books have two things in them. There's always the rudimental, how can I use the rudiments around the drum set? And then there is kind of the, I always call it my Grateful Dead drums in space. There's always like one solo that's I got from a Grateful Dead concert. And, and sometimes they're scary and sometimes it's just totally out there. But they're really, I have to find my own inspiration whenever I'm writing these things because, it's just basically pen and paper and myself. And what am I going to do? And it's amazing. I still get a royalty for my first book came out 25 years ago.
Right.
And I still get a royalty every 3 months from Melway. And I always had a lot of fun. I have 2 books sitting on the computer, waiting for I don't know what, and I'm working on a children's book now of these rhythmic mantras. Putting the poetry that on Facebook and Twitter. That's how I was able to stay in touch with my kids at school, was by putting these behavior mantras out there. Okay, I know that they're trying to do work from home, and I know how you get when you get upset. So here's a little poem for you with a drum. And,
perfect. Dom, Murray wants to see the book again.
Check it out, man. Check this out. Extreme drum set solos for recital, contest, and fun. Rob Leytham. Check it out. It's fantastic stuff. And even like Bobby's just saying now, how he loves teaching out of the NARD book, the National Association of Rudimental Drummers. That book came out in 1933. And
there's 3 of them.
It's still around and alive. And if you get the book, there's a photo in the beginning of the book of Nard that has a picture of George Lawrence Stone and William Ludwig, J. Burns Moore, Ed Strait, these late, from 1800s to 1900s. These are the drummers that kind of brought them into that century. And they were the ones that started that organization of NARD. And what you're doing is this is kind of like, 21st century NARD, or what you're doing. It really is. Show them some of the other books that you have, Rob. You have some
real quick. This is my NARD book from when you taught it to me, Dom. This is the original edition right here.
Is the photo in there, Joe, in the beginning?
Maybe the photo is not in here.
Yeah, they kind of pull a photo out, and I contacted them and said, "The hell are you doing? Put the photo back in the book."
Right. This is the duct tape the binding back to the cover.
Rob, show some of your other books that you have there.
Okay. So this one is musical drum set solos for recitals, contests, and fun. I try to keep writing things so that kids can do it in recitals. We do 2 recitals here at the store. I want them involved in contests because, the places to play aren't as plentiful as what they used to be. And so they need to have that avenue to show their stuff, to spread their stuff. Ostinatos, kind of the Bozio thing. This is kind of, Joe, 2004. You remember what happened in 2004? We were both on a Modern Drummer readers poll. this was number 2, and I think you were number 4. Number 4.
It was when I did classic tracks, right? Yeah. Is that it? Yeah, wow.
And Classic Tracks, which is published by Modern Drummer Publications, is also still available, and another good book too. Sure. Yeah, there it is.
Look at that! Look at this! Look at that young punk! Oh my God!
Yeah, I don't put any of my pictures in because I don't want anybody going, well, he doesn't look like that now. Years ago, whenever the first one came out, I don't want that. There's a screen, another rudimental drum set solo book, again for contest, a beginning book, rock drumming, jazz drumming, progressive rock drumming, and then I got bored and I wrote a piano book.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Impressive.
And these are all available on Mel Bay, correct?
Mel Bay, you can get it through Amazon also, but yeah, Mel Bay is my publisher. But that the book that you are so gracious to show, I wrote that was 10 years ago.
Yeah, and this one, Murray Piper, you're going to love this here because this really is right up your alley as far as that rudimental concept with the drum set. Good stuff.
Rob, you're such a prolific author, and I know we shared so many of the same, influences. And it's funny that you mentioned Billy Cobham. If you stay tuned to this here space, he may be joining us in the not so distant future. So we're getting that worked out, which is always a thrill. Dom was one of the counselors at Billy's Art of the Rhythm section retreat, which I guess he can't do this year because of the pandemic. But and we did SEN live from the camp with Ron Carter, and Dom was there as the interviewer, and I came in remotely. So that won't be happening this year. But as anyone who's ever joined SEN and accompanied us here knows, once you try to get out, we pull you right back in. So Cobham's going to come back in, and we're going to get him. So man, and you've had in front of us there, I think is that one of your go-to books sitting there in front of you? What's that?
Yes, the Alfred's Drum Method. My high school group, for the most part, this is what I use.
Yeah.
I just don't tell them most of the time. I use syncopation, and I use stick control, and then I have I forgotten them. It's a military drum solo book. Yes.
Is it the Wilcoxon book, Manton?
Yeah, that's it. And so for myself, for progressive playing, that's what I work out on. Mm-hmm. I've been really fortunate to be signed by Vickford, mm-hmm. Vader, as a Vader artist, and I like this Martin stick.
Yeah.
Because it's a little bit bigger than the drum set stick. It's an MV6. And the feel of it, my high school kids can use it, especially my girls. They can use it without their hands getting too tired.
Yeah. Alan Vader makes some fantastic products, and the Vader company, not only do they make great sticks, but I also love their practice pad. Their practice pad is really kind of gum rubber, and that works out real well here too. Boy, great stuff.
Hey, Matt, and are your high school are the Drumline kids, are they playing drum set too in your area?
Yes, a few of them are. A few of them are.
So like half and half, maybe?
Three of them.
Okay.
I have a freshman that just came in, and that kid came in. He was already playing drums since he was 3. Excellent drum set player. That kid is like my little mini-me.
That's great. That's great.
You remind me so much of me when I was his age. And, he came in, and I remember the first football game. We did this thing. He was all nervous, and I said, "Man, relax. You got this. With your skill set, you'll be fine." That kid normally he had a moment. Once he settled down, put on the uniform, and we went in the tunnel for the football team to come out, and the drum line started playing this cadence called Tunnel. Is it? Once he started playing, he transformed into this other little person. He learned the whole set list in 2 rehearsals.
That's beautiful.
Wow.
Beautiful.
And his dad is a pastor. And I did this cool thing for Sweetwater recently. I taught this elementary school, Salt Spring in Jamaica, via Zoom.
Oh.
And they had a bunch of drummers and some horn players. And they're doing some real big stuff for music in Jamaica. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be a vital part of it. Michelle Tinglin, she's a nurse, a nursing instructor. She went to Jamaica, saw the kids out there, and fell in love with the kids. Came back to Jersey, where you live, and started talking to her nursing friends and talking to schools, see if they can donate uniforms and instruments and stuff to furnish the kids out there. There's some like 82 marching bands, youth marching bands.
Oh, wow.
Manton, my question is, so what do you think what's the ingredient to get these marching students, to get them to drum set? How do we get these marching kids to, all of them, welcome the drum set and step into our family?
That's the next phase of my teaching thing. First, I want them to work on their hands and clean their hands up.
Yeah.
Once you clean your hands up, we'll put you on a drum set. It's much better because you learn certain technical aspect of it, or just your dexterity and moving around on the drums,
right?
Stuff like that.
Right.
I've learned that the students that spend the time to work on their hands are much better drum set players.
Yeah.
And eventually, it's to be able to get more drum sets into Jamaica.
Yeah. Do they have exposure? Do the kids have exposure to, like, one thing we've talked about a lot here is that, like, it feels like a lot of the younger kids, I'm thinking about the two, 8 and 10-year-olds I taught this week, they don't really have a favorite drummer or even a favorite band. They're not listening to music the same way, so is it the same kind of thing, what you're seeing in Jamaica as well?
Well, Jamaica is a very musically rich country. Mm-hmm. One of the things that has been what I found out is that they do not have enough teachers to come out there to teach them how to read music. So even though they learn the music, they learn how to play it in, they do what they do. Mm-hmm. So my thing is to come in to teach them how to read music so they can catch up with their playing and their reading. Mm-hmm. And to teach them to change bad habits to now picking up the right rehearsal attitudes and the right attitudes behind their instrument. And I've seen the kids transform in front of my own eyes. When I'm teaching, I hear the kids saying, I get it.
That's good.
So
I'm putting the horse before the cart.
Yeah.
It's interesting. When you say speaking, you kind of bringing them in naturally, Rob, that's what you're doing too with this course that you're doing. You're kind of bringing them in just naturally, and just let that instinctual and guttural feeling, enjoy what rhythm is about, feel the relationships of other people around you. And I think that kind of sucks them all into the fun that we're all having.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting, Dom, that you mentioned that. For those of you guys who haven't watched my interview with Will Calhoun from a couple of days back, Will talked about his travels and living part-time in Mali, Africa. And he was talking about how a lot of the young students there learn, just from being absorbed in the rhythms from a cultural standpoint. They have certain rhythms for different activities they do or community events, So, Rob, actually, kind of the same question for you. Are you, like, with all the teaching you're still doing, are you still having a nice influx of younger kids? Are they listening to drummers, or are you having to kind of pump them up about listening?
I have to do the inspiration.
Yeah.
I say, we didn't have YouTube whenever, so we had the radio and we had albums and stuff like that. So I will say, okay, you need to check out Elvin Jones. This week, you need to check out Tony Williams. You need to check out Terry Bozzio.
Yeah.
You need to check these people out. Just watch a couple of videos and then come back and tell me what you think of that. And then I will also, I wish everything in those books was original, but I steal all the time. I don't know how many Weckl licks in there I've stolen. And he now knows that I stole them, so I'll probably get something from him. But, I would say, okay, so this lick right here, I stole from Dave Weckl. You need to check him out. Get on YouTube. And, it makes it a little bit more fun. And so now, I even do it with my 8-year-old kids coming, okay, do you know who the Beatles are? Do you know who, the Rolling Stones are? And, they do. But, those people, when I was a kid, they were superheroes. They were my superheroes. Whenever Kiss came to town, it was an event, And when Queen came to town, it was an event. There's not the events anymore, but I have to create little mini events. And so look how big these guys were. They had capes on there. They were my superheroes. Check them out. You check them out and you see where I'm coming from.
Yeah. There's a great comment here by James Harrison. Before I get to that, man, it's the camaraderie of being in a Drumline, especially when working in competitions, while playing drum set doesn't have the same vibe. It's a team effort, a camaraderie. We need to inspire that in drum set. I was looking at that comment while you were talking, Robin. It occurred to me that, as if we try to get our students to play with other kids, then, I know my band, when I got together with some other kids, and of course right now it's a challenge to get kids together to play until this pandemic resolves itself. But that can be an answer to because kids love the activity thing. They love the marching band. As Dom said, my son's marching band, they have 20 drummers in the drum line, but only 2 kids have a drum set at home. And only one, my son, is serious about it. So somehow getting them to get into that, band environment that we all had, I think could be maybe one answer, but it is an ongoing thing. And like Paul Hose says, it shows that we're needed more than ever. Paul was Dom's guest. Just was it this week? Last week.
Paul Hose is a great teacher in Nottingham, England, and been playing all different styles of music, and he gets it. There's other people here. Menos Pastiliadis is from Greece. He's on here now. He's got it going on. I mean, he's in Greece doing it. So there are several pockets of the world of people that are really starting to push this agenda forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Manton, you mentioned to me when we were speaking a couple days back that you do some work with the LAPD. Is that drum related or?
I serve as a pastor for law enforcement.
Oh, okay.
Oh, nice.
And I also talked to them about resuming the LA County Sheriff's Youth Band.
Oh, great.
And I've got the green light to do it. So I'm trying to figure out, I'm going to put this together,
that's
LA
great.
LA Parks and Recreation will be a major project to put music programs in all the parks.
Yeah.
And be responsible for that and put together a mass drum line in a marching band.
Nice.
So going out to Jamaica, it's going to be awesome because I've arranged 2 pieces, going to arrange a third one. I'll be conducting a mass marching band out there and the mass drum line. And I'll be going for 2.5 weeks, 3, to teach marching bands, and during the day, do guest teaching in the schools and stuff like that.
That's fantastic.
Stuff like that. So I'm pretty excited about that.
That's great.
Thanks.
You have such a unique outreach that you have with all the different projects that you do and the project in Jamaica. That's just wonderful. We've talked, and you mentioned you did some of that teaching on Zoom. Rob, what about you? We've talked about online teaching tons on this session. We didn't talk about it much today. I'm sure you've been doing the online education.
There was about 12 weeks that I did 100% online, and like I said earlier, I would during the day I would write a new mantra and put it out for my kids. Right now, Palin, we're at about I'm at about 60% face-to-face back into the studio again where I'm at right now. But I still have my computer and stuff online because there's still some people that don't feel safe, and that's fine. And I can teach them virtually. And if you think about it, 15 years ago we couldn't have done this.
Right.
And thank goodness for technology, which we're able to keep it going. I lost maybe two students. The store, we were still teaching trombone, brass, guitar. We were doing 200. This store was doing over 200 lessons a week, just virtually. Mm-hmm. And so people have a hunger to learn music, and they're getting tired of. I think they're getting tired of Netflix. I think they're getting tired of whatever app there's there. They want the hand. They want the fine motor skills. They want to think differently. They have a song. There's so much going on into the world right now. We needed this creative outlet, and music, drums. That's it for me.
Yeah. And it's amazing you said that, because to me, when I knew teaching was important to me was when I was considering retiring. And I went for my walked by my high school I graduated from, and I heard a bunch of I heard drums, and I'm like, well, that's not high school kids. And when I went in there, the young man that was conducting them looked just like me and act just like me. And I just stood there and go, it's like looking at me away from me. When he turned around and looked at me, it was a kid that I started in the elementary school. And he told his kids, he broke down in tears and he said, you guys don't understand. This man put the first pair of sticks in my hand.
Wonderful.
It's when I was looking on YouTube one night and saw my students play with Macy Gray. And I started them in the 6th grade, and I'm going, well, what are you doing up there? When you see your students play with George Duke, Stanley Clark, that's when you know that teaching is really important.
Yeah. Well, you've had that. You've had the wonderful experience of seeing what Dom always says. And I remember. I can't remember, Dom, where the quote came from. The teacher affects eternity. You don't know where your influence will stop. Yeah. So, guys, this has been a really inspiring session. Both Rob and Manton, these are two guys who are really passionate about what they do. I'm so pleased that we could have you both on. And I want to thank you guys both. Also, you've been playing Sabian a long time, and thank you for being part of the family and sharing your wisdom with SEN. It's been another great session. Next week, I want to remind everybody to tune in with Dom at the usual Thursday, 2:00. I think Chris Tibaldi, is going to be on.
Yes, Chris Tibaldi, another wonderful young player and teacher, and really an inspired person. Yeah. And
then next Friday we'll be back with another great pair of teachers. We have Keith Dudek from Nashville, and who I met actually when I was down there for a couple of the SEN events. Wonderful player, very passionate teacher, old friend of Sabian, and also Fred Dinkins, great teacher from Musicians Institute.
Oh, yeah, awesome.
And I got to tell you, if you guys are interested in the online thing, you got to be here. Fred has the sick setup. We tested it out. He's got, I don't want to spill the beans, but he's got a thing for switching his cameras that no one else has. And he's got like a whole great setup. So it's going to be very exciting to see that. So anyway, thank you, everybody. We have an international audience, but for those in the States, enjoy your 4th of July weekend we have coming up. And Rob and Manton, thank you guys for sharing your passion.
Thank you.
And your expertise.
Back to Sabian, Dom.
Yeah, guys. And remember, gentlemen, in the kind of the process here is, if you have regrets about certain parts of your life, you're living in the past. You're allowing the past. You're still there. If you have anxiety and you're worried about what's going to happen, you're living in the future. You will find peace with yourself if you live always in the now and in the moment.
Yes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thanks for that, Dom, and thank you guys. Thanks for being part of SEN, and we'll see you guys on the next sessions next week. Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.